Good evening, guys. This is Henry Gamble with SimplerOptions.com, and in tonight's video I wanted to continue the discussion that we've been having on market internals, and I'm really going to go slow through this stuff. It's one of those where if you're familiar with this and you've been through it 100 times, it may not be for you, but for people that if you're just kind of getting your feet wet with Thinkorswim, much less these technical signals we're following throughout the day, I think this will be geared more towards you. So as we get started, we're going to come up here into the top left hand corner and we're going to type in the market internal that we have in question. Now in this case it starts with the cash sign and followed by TICK. Once that populates, it's going to give you a brief description of what that particular symbol actually is, which in this case it's the New York Stock Exchange tick. So when a stock is purchased or it goes up in value on that transaction, it's called an uptick. Just the inverse happens to a downtick, or it's when a market has been sold from a previously higher price. That's a tick, and then it's the up and down ticks that are being weighed against each other. So what happens here is when you start seeing extremely bullish tick readings, in Thinkorswim I follow those between the 800 and 1200 range, there's serious buying coming into the market, and of course the exact same thing to the inverse. Now when I apply this symbol onto my charts, you'll notice that this layout does not do anything for me. That's because it is taking the default layout that I use on every one of my charts, and it automatically does that. If we come back down and go to Style, and then reset to factory default, this may be a little bit closer to what you're used to seeing on your chart. So how do you get this from just this noise of absolutely nothing down to good, useful information? Well, let's take a look at a couple of the steps. First, we're going to come up into Style and go down into Settings. Now these don't have anything to do with the ticker themselves, but they have everything to do with the way the chart behind them is going to show that information. So the first things that I like to do is come back over into the Appearance. I'll come back down into this, and I don't like looking at this background grid. I think it makes it kind of cluttered, so I'll uncheck that. Notice that this gives you a preview of what it's going to look like before you have to apply it. Also, for this particular study, I like using candlesticks. Now you can do whatever coloring scheme you find appropriate. I think it's easy to keep in mind that if you'll do the up candles as white, that they are light, they're airy, they float, that sort of thing. Of course, the border for these I always select as black, so they do stand out on a light background. Like I said, these are just the specifics of each aspect of this chart when I'm looking at it throughout the day. The doji being gray is fine, and then I do like to fill them. This is where I was looking at previously. So you're filling those there, and then filling them down here. And to me, this color scheme just makes it very easy to understand bars that were heavy and bars that were light and airy. So there we've set up our candlesticks, and those are easy to understand. That's the main thing with looking at the appearance of that chart. Now the next thing that you want to do, and let's do this in 2 steps so it's very clear. We'll click OK from there, and then as you zoom in, okay, well this still looks very noisy. So what's one more thing we need to change? Well, you've got to take this down into a 1-minute chart, because 1 minute, this is kind of the heartbeat or the pulse of the market, so you're really able to follow it a little closer in real time. You'll also notice that there are these gray areas here. What this is showing you technically is the extended session for this particular ticker. Now this ticker is only active from 8:30 Central Time into 3 p.m. Central Time, so this area in here, although it's typically not going to have any information really to speak of, if you want to make your charts clean and accurate, that's when you're going to come into Settings, Equities, because technically they look at this as being an equity indicator, and then you uncheck this extended session. Once you do that, you'll hit OK, and you'll notice those levels are gone. So this is all how you start stepping into these and making them easier to see. Now in this case too, you might say the white are kind of difficult to show up, so what I do is go back into Style and Settings. Now when you use the metal theme, which is what I use in Thinkorswim when you first launch it, that's what's going to determine the colors of a lot of what you're looking at. I think that's a great color to use because it's a happy medium between the black and the white. And the other thing that makes this easy is when I go back into my appearance, if I want these white candlesticks to stand out a little bit better, I can click on Common, I can click on Background, and when you go to Select, you're going to get this dialog box that pops up here. The third cell from the top on the far left is the exact same color value as the platform itself when you select the metal theme. So it's just a little side piece of knowledge there, but when you do that, it just makes the background match the color of the platform, and now these ticks stand out very cleanly and they start to look more accurate into what we follow throughout the day. So as you can see today, we have pretty much stayed inside the about plus 650 or so to the upside, and within 400 to the downside. So it's definitely choppy. Had a couple little bullish spikes in there, but the main zones you want to focus on, now this is the next step of that, because there are areas in here where you just consider this to be noise. In Thinkorswim, you're typically going to have a little bit higher readings than what you see in TradeStation. So I like to mark these at 600 and then 1000. In order to do that, come over here into the bottom left-hand corner where you can select the type of drawing tool you want to use. I like to give myself a 0 line so I know where I'm working from, or kind of where is home. We'll set this as to be a straight up black level so it stands out nice against that gray background. And then you just repeat this process. Now for the first side to the upside, let's go ahead and draw this in at 600. I'll do something like, especially too, where if you wanted to get real detailed about this, you could do your first level as yellow or kind of caution, and then red as it gets more extreme, or green, yellow, red, however you want to do that, just so they can make sense for you. For the sake of keeping this tutorial relatively quick, I'm just going to do 600. We'll do this as a dotted line and hit OK. And then I'm going to create one more here and edit this to be the 1000 level. Now you can go in and color them as you like, but the other reason why I'll do this sometimes with these levels or these drawing tools, however you want to look at them, is, to me, I look at this and say, okay, the dotted line, that's going to be easier to get through, meaning it's a little bit more minor. Then you start getting up into these solid levels, they're more important, and readings outside of that are more extreme. You would relate the exact same things to minus 600 and minus 1000, and that should be able to take you from an absolute scratch workspace to a clearly defined layout of the ticks and knowing exactly what to follow throughout the day. So I hope that helps, and we'll see you guys at the next free video.